People like Peter Schiff, Warren Buffett, and others have caused millions of people to miss out on making money. And a Harvard economist is even warning that Bitcoin could fall to $100. That's completely crazy, and there's a plan behind it. All the details are in the video. And don't forget to give the video a like. That supports the channel for free and helps with the algorithm. And when I started with cryptocurrencies a few years ago, I was skeptical. I read that Bitcoin could rise to $1 million per Bitcoin. That sounded completely crazy at the time because I wasn't thinking about market capitalization or usage, just how is that even possible? Normally, for example, something is worth $100 and maybe goes up to $1,500, not to $1 million. Then I heard that if all money, all debt, basically everything switched to Bitcoin, it could even be, in the 2060s or later, that Bitcoin could be worth $100 million per Bitcoin. At first, I thought that was far-fetched, but maybe there's a bit more to it. And it annoyed me that people like Peter Schiff or Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan said Bitcoin is worthless. And they actually meant it seriously, and just listen to what Peter Schiff has to say about it now. He even warns that the Bitcoin bubble is worse than the dot-com crisis and that MicroStrategy is facing bankruptcy.
I guess when history looks back at the Bitcoin craze, the way we currently look back at, tulip mania to the extent that people even know about it, but I think Michael Saylor is going to be a big part of it, maybe even the face of it, because I do expect that MicroStrategy stock is going to go bankrupt as a company. And I believe a lot of people who bought the convertible notes under the delusion that they were, buying Bitcoin without the risk, that they were participating in the upside, but they had to put on the downside because they could get their money back from strategy. They're in for a rude awakening because MicroStrategy is not going to have the money to repay the notes because it's just going to have Bitcoin. And when it sells its Bitcoin, it's not going to get nearly enough money to cover its debt. So I think that all the MicroStrategy stockholders will be completely wiped out, and I think the note holders will also lose significantly. They may not lose everything. They'll get something because they're going to have a residual claim on whatever assets MicroStrategy manages to retain. I'm not really sure what the software company is worth that's buried beneath the mountain of worthless Bitcoin. But, it's going to be a big part of it. And I think one of the reasons that Bitcoin is, 190,000, wherever it is right now, is because of MicroStrategy and all the Bitcoin they've been able to buy and all the other companies that are now copying the Bitcoin strategy. There's a whole host of companies that are now just buying Bitcoin, and new companies are being formed for the sole purpose of buying Bitcoin, which anybody could buy on their own. I don't need to hire. I don't need to invest in a company whose business is buying Bitcoin when anybody can just buy Bitcoin. But this is what's happening because it's like a mania. It's worse than the dot-com bubble. There's nothing even underneath it that's real.
And I totally understand how frustrating it can be when people just don't get Bitcoin or even badmouth it. You keep hearing from people like Warren Buffett and others who say that Bitcoin is worthless. But that's just not true at all. For example, they only look at the price per coin and overlook what Bitcoin really is: a decentralized network that runs around the clock without any government interference. It's accessible to 8 billion people just like that without anyone controlling it. And that's a huge value that goes beyond dollars or euros. It's about freedom and access and financial independence, and more companies are now using it. The US company Steak and Shake has introduced Bitcoin as a means of payment globally, not just in the USA, but also in France, Monaco, and Spain. And the company emphasizes that Bitcoin transactions are faster than credit cards like Visa and MasterCard and incur 50% lower processing fees. And since introducing Bitcoin as a payment method, Steak and Shake has seen an increase in customer numbers and business growth. The key message in this interview is Bitcoin is being presented as an efficient, cost-saving solution for the future that is already delivering measurable benefits.
This implementation was a global implementation, not just in the United States, but also in our company-operated restaurants in France, Monaco, and Spain. Thank you very much. Our experience so far with Bitcoin in our usage has been that it is significantly faster than credit cards. And when customers choose to pay in Bitcoin instead of credit cards, we are saving about 50% in our processing fees. This means that Bitcoin is absolutely a win for the customer. It's a win for us as the merchant. And of course, it's also a win for you as members of the Bitcoin community.
I have some facts and figures here, so if you'll forgive me, I'll refer to my notes a little bit. But I don't want to get it wrong. The day we launched Bitcoin payments at Steak and Shake accounted for 0.2% of the global Bitcoin transactions in the world. So, while Bitcoin may be the future, Steak and Shake has brought Bitcoin into the present. And there's no question we've seen an upsurge in our business. In our world, customer guest counts are one of the most key metrics that we measure. And in that measure, we've seen a sustained spike. Thanks to you. But for many, the Bitcoin rejection, or the way they reject Bitcoin, also plays a generational thing. Older people, let's say over 60 years, have lived their lives with physical money and also paid. For them, money is something that you can touch. Bar money, checks, maybe even gold. But when you are younger, you trick differently. Many of the younger generation find it completely normal to have digital possession. Think of Spotify, for example. People no longer own their music, they now just stream the music in an app, for example. And for someone who only knows paper money, this is really a leap. But to really check and understand Bitcoin, you have to learn a lot. It's not just about being a cryptocurrency, you have to understand what inflation be loaded, how money systems work, how many manipulations are in there. Have you heard of the Bretton Woods system, for example? Probably if you follow my channel. That was basically such a milestone. That shows how the money we use today has emerged. And if you look through all of this, you can see how much the financial system is controlled by a few people. And it's a steep learning curve. If you deal with it, no question, but it's worth it because you suddenly understand why Bitcoin is so special. And some of these financial experts that so many people look at lügen einfach dreist. Warren Buffett sagt beispielsweise vor Publikum oder auch Peter Schiff, Bitcoin habe keinen Wert, obwohl Warren Buffett genau weiß, dass da mehr dahinter steckt. Und auch Peter Schiff. Die Reichen, die hinter den Kulissen agieren, wie bei BlackRock, haben noch ganz andere Informationen als wir. Die wissen, wie viel gekauft wird, wie viel über Tochterfirmen oder Briefkastenfirmen verschoben wird und wie viel weggesperrt wird von Bitcoin beispielsweise. Wir kriegen nur die Tröpfchen-Nachrichten, die bei uns dann ankommen oder ankommen sollen. Total irre ist das. Even in universities, information is spread so that people don't buy Bitcoin. And that was probably all planned. In 2018, a Harvard professor named Kenneth Rogoff spoke about Bitcoin. Someone told him that Bitcoin could be worth at least $100,000 per Bitcoin by 2028. And Rogoff said in 2018 that the probability that Bitcoin falls to $100 is greater than the probability that Bitcoin rises to $100,000 per Bitcoin. That's totally crazy because Rogoff is a well-known economist and was once chief economist. And now you know why all this happened of the International Monetary Fund. And that basically says it all. And now, David Sachs, who was recently named? From President Trump to the AI and crypto czar, he has announced on a press conference or in several interviews. A clear message, Bitcoin and the blockchain technology will represent the financial system of the future. Not more paper money, but Bitcoin and the blockchain technology. What we accomplish exactly through? Price levels, I guess I want to measure it through innovation levels. But I will say that I did notice that Bitcoin just hit a new all-time high the other day. And that was great to see. Yeah. I don't think it's a coincidence. It's not. Yes. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we see that blockchain, Bitcoin, crypto, this is the financial system of the future. And we want this in an innovation happening in the United States. We don't want it driven offshore. That's basically what was happening before is because under the Biden administration, and as we all know, Elizabeth Warren had the auto pen, all this innovation was being driven offshore. It was being driven to other countries. And that's not the American way. I mean, the American way is always to be the innovator, the leader in technology. And we want this financial revolution happening in the United States. We want to be leading in this. We don't want to be driving it offshore. It's crazy. This statement undermines his conviction that Bitcoin is far more than just a speculative system. He sees it as a fundamental change towards a decentralized economic model. And in his latest public appearance, David Sachs even declared Bitcoin as a non-state currency and claimed that Bitcoin is secured by mathematics and encryption and offers an alternative to traditional currencies controlled by the government, i.e., the dollar and the euro, for example. And he also says about economic stability, especially in times of economic uncertainty. And currency devaluation is more Bitcoin as a solution, and if you now ask why? Now, many companies have not yet entered the Bitcoin market or have invested in Bitcoin, like Apple, Google, and so on. I am of the opinion that many large companies are waiting for the first time. How Bitcoin claims to be in a crisis, in a crash, in a larger crisis, and when you see that Bitcoin claims to be, then we will see the right capital flood. What we are now experiencing is basically a lazy little breeze. And David Six believes that Bitcoin the USA to the top of global financial technology. Bring it. So he suggests that the government should build a strategic reserve on digital assets, including Bitcoin, to strengthen this position. And that's totally crazy. And now everyone is talking about Bitcoin, maybe rising to $250,000 or even $500,000 this year. While an economist years ago warned that Bitcoin would fall to $100 and not rise to $100,000. But we can see Bitcoin is used every day and huge sums of money are being moved with Bitcoin. That's why companies like Visa and Mastercard want to unbedingt dabei sein, weil Bitcoin sie überflüssig machen könnte. Immer mehr Leute nutzen Bitcoin, immer mehr Unternehmen steigen ein und die Zahlen zeigen, dass Bitcoin bzw. der Bitcoin-Preis weiter steigen wird. Das ist im Grunde genommen lustig, wenn man sich andere Vorhersagen anschaut, wie die von Jamie Dimon beispielsweise. Der Chef von JB Morgan, er hat vor Jahren gesagt, dass Bitcoin es nicht schaffen wird. Der Ökonom von Harvard hat gesagt, dass Bitcoin auf $100 fallen wird. Und jetzt kaufen Regierungen und große Fund und BlackRock und so weiter Bitcoin. There are companies that have almost 1 million Bitcoin. Bitcoin has basically already won, and it will rise to several $million per coin. Simply because of that, because then more large companies also start up, but you also have to know we don't need the large companies to be successful with Bitcoins. We can do it ourselves. So if you want to be there, then do it now, and I want to hear from someone who complains. Later, when Bitcoin rises to $1 million per Bitcoin, because you knew that this would happen. And if you now want to build financial freedom through crypto and Bitcoin, click on the link in the description below the video, watch the video, it's free. It is important that you act even if you don't click. I wish you a nice day.